Thank you for joining us this week, friends. I am so excited to have my friend Calene here. Wow, I almost didn't use your pen name because my brain just deleted it. My friend Calene, and she writes wonderful romances. And I wanted to have you on this week to talk about how to write about love that's real. Not just, the kind of love that seems like fun, but something real and honest. Because
Yeah.
your book kind of talks about that and gets into what that is. So, tell us a little bit about your book, and also let's talk about love.
Okay. Um, yeah, it does. The my romance book that we're talking about, yeah, kind of Forgive Me Not,
Yep.
is it's called Forgive Me Not because it starts out at the point where a woman has just escaped from an abusive relationship.
Mm,
And so it addresses all the tough things about that. You have It's hard to escape when you've been in an abusive relationship because the law can't really protect you.
yep.
And when you've made bad choices about the person you thought loved you, how do you figure out what you did wrong and how to make good, healthy choices for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's scary after that. And far too many women have lived varying versions of that. So I mean, it's a romance, and it's happy ending
Yep. Of course.
with a great guy.
Good. As we all deserve.
That's right, a great person,
Yep.
great partner, one
A
way or
great
another,
love, one way or
a great
other.
love, yeah, because it doesn't matter as long as it's love.
Yep.
But her, new love gets put through hell too because
Mm-hmm.
you how do you trust the next one?
Yeah.
And even though he didn't do anything, she has to go through all of the finding her own self.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's messy and painful in the middle. I warn people it's got triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like people's stories to be heard.
Yeah.
People say, "Well, just leave him."
It's so much more
Mm,
complicated than that.
yeah,
As somebody who's been in abusive relationships in my life, it is so much more complicated than, well, just leave them. Because there's so much tied up into it. Sometimes it's you've got kids, sometimes you've got a life you've built together, sometimes they have you in such a place that financially you don't have the option to.
right,
There's so many ways that you can end up trapped in bad situations that aren't your fault, were never your
right,
fault. And how just people like to make it so simple and like, oh, just leave and don't go back. Yeah, but what do you do?
yeah. You can say, "Well, go. There's women's shelters. Go there. They're full.
Mm-hmm.
You can get on a waiting list, but depending on how bad it is, you
Yeah.
may not have the ability to wait."
Right. And
So, and then one of the things she struggles with was, how did I mistake this guy's feelings for me or whatever? How did I mistake it for love? And so she goes through a period where she's looking back and going, he was charming, and at first I thought, he was making decisions for us
mm-hmm.
because he wanted to show me the world, he said.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize he was disappearing me in the book.
Yeah.
Um, so it's tough, and some
It
guys don't let
is.
go.
No. And also, everyone's like, well, if you can't go by yourself, just like get a friend and what have you. But it's also sometimes your friends can't just appear you under their couch, or even worse, your friends might not understand what's going on because the abuser might have portrayed himself as the victim in all of this, and they might feed information back to them. Like, there's a whole trust ecosystem that gets ruined in situations like this.
Yes, yeah,
And coming out of that is hard. My husband, God bless him, has to put up with a lot of stuff and a lot of damage that he did not do.
yeah,
And finding someone who's able to understand that your reactions to this might not be about him is hard.
Yeah. Well, that's part of what I was trying to create in the book was his journey as well. You know, he meets her, he falls in love in the ordinary way. He's like, oh, look at that gorgeous woman who lives, next door,
Mm-hmm.
because they both just recently moved into the town. And if it when it starts to develop into something, a lot of stuff suddenly bubbles up. And
Yep.
when the crisis really happens, he's like, but I didn't do it. And I
Yeah.
feel like I'm being painted with that brush. And
Yep.
so I have a wise woman in the book, an older woman who sort of tries to help and guide them and show them, okay, right now that you're buying stuff that's not yours. You're accepting
Yep.
stuff that's not yours, and she's not meaning to put it on you, but she still has to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
It sounds like, this is a romance. It is about love, but it comes across as like it's more about real love. Like I can't throw a rock without in a crowd of women. I wouldn't throw a rock in a crowd of women, but my point being, like I couldn't throw a tennis ball.
ping
We'll go
pong
with a
ball,
tennis ball. Yeah, ping pong ball without hitting somebody who's been through something like this or some version of this in their lives. So it
right?
seems like you're trying to, in a way, give a message of hope to somebody who might be in that situation. Like you aren't alone in this journey, and it's hard, but you don't. It's not necessarily forever. There are also people who will love you because you are innately lovable even after this.
Yes, yes. Um, I think an awful lot of people end up not feeling like they're lovable.
Mm-hmm.
And we all are unique and wonderful. And if we've been battered down, that doesn't change that you are unique and wonderful
Mm-hmm.
and lovable and deserving of love and have love to give.
Yeah.
You have something to give. You, women end up feeling weak,
Yeah.
like, I must have been so weak to fall for this, to stay here, to it's not true. And at one
Mm-hmm.
point in the book, they deal with that about, you know, no, it wasn't a weakness. It
Yeah.
wasn't a weakness. In fact, you were a lot stronger than most people ever have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You stood in that and dealt with it and stayed relatively whole.
Yeah.
And there is hope and there is a way out for most of us.
Mm-hmm.
Some do not get out, but
Yeah.
but there is. And I just want people to be heard. I want them to,
Mm-hmm.
to be heard and know that they're not alone. Because, like you said, friends around you don't always understand the situation.
Yep.
And probably for two reasons. Some of it is because you start being silent about some of the stuff that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're trying to protect the other person's image, or you're scared, or a million
Yeah,
other things.
yeah. Um, my first husband was an alcoholic, and he was charming. And I finally figured out that if you think someone's charming, you should run the other way.
Oh, now everybody's gonna run from me. Don't say that. No, I'm gonna scare people.
No, you're adorable, you're wonderful, you're friendly, you're outgoing, you're accepting, you're when
Okay,
you look
okay, okay. Pardon me, excuse me. I'm gonna over here. Uh, those
when
of
you
you listening to the audio podcast mercifully cannot hear how red my face is, but I promise. But
oh, you'll like book two, the main
yeah,
character in book two. She's always turning red.
love it. Great.
She's like, damn
I
it,
had
face
yep.
red.
Mm-hmm. Every time I blush at the drop of a hat. It's the worst. I can't like. Ugh. I mean, I won't say it's the worst because there are worse things, but still, I can't maintain my gruff and macho man image if I keep turning pink every time somebody says something nice about me.
Well, see, that's a problem. It's true. It's true. It's totally true. But that's a problem too. We're not very good at saying, wow, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, I say, "You're really wonderful," and you blush.
Yep.
But it's
And
okay to
hide.
go, "Yeah, but it's okay." She ducked down behind the desk.
Yeah, I hid behind the desk. It was I legitimately, those of you who are unable to see the what happened here is I just I fled, honestly. That's my instinct, is to run. And that's something that I've been working on and does come out of abuse, because usually if people are saying nice things to you, it means they want something from you, or alternatively, it's in order to make themselves look better, which isn't what I'm saying you're doing, Calene. You're delightful, but you are not that person. But like a lot of the times when I got compliments, they were either like backhanded or, not honest, or if they were honest compliments, there was a motive,
Yeah,
and it's hard. And trying to like come out of that it's hard work.
yeah, it is hard work. It is
So
hard work.
it's
Having a great life frequently means putting in some really hard work.
yeah. Mhm. It does.
I also think that we don't teach people how to give and take compliments. So sometimes the shallow things that people say compliment wise is because they have no clue how to,
Yeah,
be a builder up of the people they care about.
definitely. And I think also as authors, it translates, because a lot of authors, when you say something nice about their book, their immediate reaction is, please do not make eye contact with me. Um, and because we don't receive those compliments well, and it's because writing a book, particularly something as raw as your book is, it requires a level of vulnerability in public that most people just are not comfortable with.
Yeah,
And it's hard.
yeah. And one of the questions I've gotten is, is this your story? And I'm like, well, part of my story is in there, but it's a compilation of so many women that I know
Mm-hmm.
and so many women I've heard about. I mean, I was in a Bible study years ago when they came out with the thing that said 1 in 4 women had
Yep.
been abused, and there were 8 of us in the
Mm-hmm.
group, and we were like, how many in this group have had that occasion? And 2 of us raised our hand.
Yep.
It was like, wow, statistics are working out here.
Yep, they are.
So,
And and also it's also important to hear these stories told, I think, particularly from people who've lived them, because so often I see stories in media about this kind of thing, and you can tell as you're consuming the story that this person has not lived this experience.
right,
They're just kind of, they might be genuinely trying to portray something honest, but they haven't lived it.
right.
And until you've experienced some things, there is no way for you to be able to really connect with that experience
Yeah,
in a way that matters. And there's a healing thing by being seen by people who've been there and understand. Like it's a unique experience.
yes. Yeah, it is. I, for a number of years, I ran support groups for colon cancer patients.
Mm-hmm.
And people would call me in tears and saying, "I'm not sure I can handle going to the group." I said, "I promise you that even if all you do is sit in the room and say not a word, you will feel better. You will feel stronger.
Yeah.
You will walk away feeling better, able to cope." And I said, "And most of the time, you'll walk away laughing. And I know you don't get that right now.
Yep.
But I learned that. I learned the power of being in the room with people who truly know what you're walking through
Mm-hmm.
from the open AA meetings with my first husband. The guys would get up and tell their stories, and all the other guys would laugh. And you could see that as, oh, they're laughing about destroying their families and that's not what the laughter is in that case. The laughter is, oh my God, somebody else knows
Yep.
what I'm talking about.
Oh, definitely. In I've been in a number of spaces that are unique to a particular disability, whether it's autism or ADHD or Ehlers-Danlos or all kinds of things or other situations. And there's also a particular sense of humor that
Yeah.
comes with dealing with the really deep, dark stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I make jokes about things that other people are like, how can you even? What's wrong with you? I'm like, oh, there's so many things wrong with me. Would you like the list? It's called the DSM-5. But but there's
Dark
a
humor, black humor saves us in the middle of hell.
it does. It absolutely does. And people who they're and books written by people who get it usually have pieces of that in there. And you'll be reading this horrible experience that somebody's having, and yet you're also going to be laughing about it because at the same time, you're going to know that this is no, I've been there. It is that funny. It's absolutely real. And
Yeah.
at the same time, everyone else is like, that is horrifying. And you're like, no, this is hilarious. It's fine. Just keep watching.
Actually, my favorite reviews and compliments that people have said about the book are when they get my sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Because my sense of humor, I'm from a family who we laugh in the middle of funerals.
Yep.
You
Same
know,
here.
and so humor's really hard, I think, to write. So when people read the humor I wrote into this very, you know, tough book, um, I love it.
Yep.
I love it. It just it makes me feel like I if you can make someone laugh, you can get them to listen to almost anything.
Absolutely. And I also think that there's humanizing the experience and kind of not just for like your book would connect with people who've experienced the hard stuff,
Yeah,
but it also connects with people who maybe haven't experienced it but are open to hearing this kind of story and
yeah,
understanding that this is a thing that happens.
yeah,
And it builds empathy and humanizes the whole experience because stories like that take it out from just being a concept and this is a person.
right. It's not just a news story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole
Yep.
thing. It's a whole experience.
Yeah.
It's 3D, not 2D. It's not yeah.
Right. Like I think the question I would want to ask is how did you dig into that and how did you write that honestly without like endangering yourself? Cuz it's hard to write about these things without going back to that place cuz I've got characters and stories where I've ended up like talking to my therapist this week like I was writing about this and woo did that drag up some stuff.
Yeah.
So, what helped you get through that?
When I write the toughest scenes, I usually stop at the end of the scene and I have to walk away from it for a day or two.
Mhm.
Um, I just have to. I have it, I pour it all out. Now, I will also say, I'm what they call a pantser.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't lay out the plot. I know this, I figure out the story I want to tell and
Mhm.
what the components are, but then I start writing. And I just have a feel for, okay, now it's time to share this
Mhm.
part of this.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I have to walk away from it.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's tough. I mean, part of me wants to defend some of the things that I don't think people can understand if they haven't been in it. But I'm hoping that when they read the book, and if they haven't been through that situation, that they will gain a better understanding of
Mhm.
it. Um, like I tell you, I deal with so many. You know that situation is just got so much baggage, so much
Yeah.
that has to be unwrapped, unraveled. And one of them is getting hypersexualized.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel real to people if someone jumps right into bed with the next guy, but
But it is real.
it's real.
It's also I'd say it's also partially the fawn response because you know that that is a way to make the other person happy and you're safe when the other person is happy. It's not just about the physical act, it's about making yourself safe and that is one way that many women make themselves safe is that,
Yes.
you know,
So
and that's hard.
yeah, it is hard, but they get through it. In the book,
Hmm.
they get through it. I tell people, I promise a satisfying flourish at the end.
Yes, yes. I had a conversation with I've had a couple of conversations with people recently about also how the act of writing these things can also be healing, because not only are you working on the trauma and working on the experience you had and kind of processing it through the story, but you're also able to be the person who's helping the individual in the story who
Yeah.
needed the help. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like reparenting yourself as you write this, sort of.
I never thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's part of that process. I didn't that rings so true. Um, that is really part of the process. I never thought about phrasing it that way. Um, but you're right. You are taking the pieces of you that got broken and weaving a different ending for them.
Right. And it might be an ending you can have too. Like, it isn't,
It,
love is not something out of the reach of people who've been abused. Hi, I'm here. Like, I've been with my husband for 17 years. He's wonderful. I love him so much. And before that, I dealt with a lot of bad stuff, and it has taken us a long time and a lot of therapy, a
yeah,
lot of couples therapy too, to work through a lot of this stuff.
yeah,
And like, but writing stories about that kind of thing sometimes makes me feel like healing is possible for me too,
yeah, yeah. It's
you know.
true. I mean, almost nobody gets through this life without being somewhat battered. Maybe everybody
Hmm.
gets battered. Um, I have one aunt who I'm not sure she got battered. She was just happy person her entire life. And her sister, who was always in trouble and got her share of being battered, kind of stuff. She was like, no, no, she was always nice.
Well, I'm glad that people like that exist. They're fairy tales for the rest of us, but I'm really glad they exist. They,
Yeah, I love reading the fairy tale romances.
oh
I
yeah, they're
love
fun.
reading the, hot, sweaty
Yep,
sex. Although I had to stop reading one writer's hot, sweaty sex for a while because it's
yeah.
like, just made me mad at my husband.
Oh no! Womp womp. Well, at that point, you just be like, honey, I have a book for you to read.
I'll mark the pages.
Yeah. Oop, I somehow suddenly started playing my music in the background. Please don't copyright claim the 30 seconds of sleep token. Um, oops. My bad. It's what I get for not having everything closed. But yeah, it's this. I think as writers, a lot of the time we tell the stories that we need to hear, but we also know other people need to hear those stories too.
Yeah,
Like it's a mutual, everybody needs to hear this kind of experience. And it's liberating to be able to be the person who told the stories I wish I'd had.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's, if you're an author out there worried about should I tell my story, whether you fictionalize it or not, t- somebody out there needs to hear the journey you have been on. And if you share that journey with them, it will make an impact on them. And it might be the same kind of like, I wish I'd heard this when I was there.
you are so
You know,
right.
it's,
You are so right. I heard it put just recently that you need to suffer loudly so others don't suffer in silence.
yep, yep. That's absolutely true. Like the ability to be heard is it's scary because putting myself out there, I talk a lot on my page about like some of the experiences I've had, my mental health, stuff like that. I'm out there about being autistic, about being trans, about being all of these things, and it is scary to be that visible.
Yeah,
It really is. I'm lucky enough that the people who hate folks like me have not really found me and they don't really care about me, which is fabulous. Um,
yeah,
but the people who do care, they are impacted by my visibility, and if I can be honest about this, I've other people have started being honest about other things in their lives, or I've
yeah,
gotten very personal emails from people from my newsletters. Like when I talk about difficult things, they will share things that they've gone through, and it can create this space where these stories heal the world and heal the damage.
yes,
And that's one of the most important things about storytelling is about sharing experience,
Yes.
you know?
Human beings were made to tell stories.
Yes.
And when we don't tell our story, somebody loses out.
Mhm.
Ourself and somebody else, but somebody loses out.
Yeah.
So,
And it's hard sometimes to tell those stories and like pull out the visceral pieces of ourselves that lived through the bad stuff
yeah.
and be like, here's a book about the worst things that have ever happened in my life happening to somebody else. 1 star review. Package arrived damaged. Really? Really? Thanks. You know, but
Didn't like the cover. Okay,
right,
but you can read that
right,
book.
right. Oh my gosh.
The
Like, but
cover, her hair was blonde, but in the story you said it was brown.
like, well, now it's blonde. Shut up. That's what. Look, okay, listen, listen. If Jim Butcher in the Dresden Files series, which is a big fantasy series, very famous. I don't know if he writes urban fantasy.
Yeah,
His covers all have this dude in a trench coat and a Stetson on them.
yeah,
Harry Dresden from the book series never wears a Stetson. He never wears anything like that. He doesn't wear that outfit once. And yet all of the books, this dude, and it's every single one of them, and if Harry Dresden can dress like that on the cover of his books, I think your character not being blonde is hardly the worst offense that could be committed.
yeah.
Like,
Although in this case, the cover ended up being a rose, but
yes,
it had
but
people on it. And then I decided that it was much more telling not to have
mhm,
faces on it, no, or
yeah,
not telling, much more universal, maybe.
yeah,
I
I
didn't
can see
want
that.
it to feel like, you know, oh, that's somebody else's story.
Right, I can see that. That's definitely a thing, and sometimes in a story like this where you're dealing with the difficulties of real people, real love, and talking about things that are kind of, I hate to say it, more universal experiences than we really wish they were. Being
Yeah,
able to see yourself in the character, regardless of how the character's described, having your own relationship is kind of important rather than, you
yeah,
know, because there's a point at which I no longer control how somebody sees the characters in my story. I can describe them, but it's not up to me how somebody sees and experiences that character. It's up to the reader, which is part of the author reader conversation that happens. Even if we never talk to the person, we're having a conversation.
right, right. That's the magic of a book, is
Mm-hmm.
that all of the scenes, all of the people are created in your head with the clues and bits that the writer offers you.
Yep.
But that's why people will go, "Wow, I read the book, but that doesn't look anything like what I expected."
Right? But that's okay because we all
Yeah,
have our own experience, and it's so deeply personal. Whether it's writing or reading it, like we have our own relationship to these characters, to this whole world, and internalizing that experience helps us relate to it and build that feeling that you get when you read a book. You don't get that same feeling from watching a movie or whatever where you see everything. There's
yeah,
an intimacy there of building the whole thing yourself,
yeah.
which unfortunately sometimes results in fans having knockdown, drag out arguments over the color of a character's eyes, but still, that's not my problem.
Now I'll talk about the color of the eyes and the color of the hair, but I rarely talk about the color of skin.
Yep.
I rarely talk about things that absolutely pin it to one particular type of person, one particular
Mm-hmm.
race, one particular. That's different in the second book I'm writing,
Yeah.
because that's called um, "Hate Does Hate Do Us Part,"
Ooh.
because it's about being hated because of who you are.
Yeah. And so the identity thing is really important in that book.
Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can see that.
Yeah. I because the stories that we're telling is they're universal, and I would
Yep.
hope that whoever picks it up goes, yeah, you got me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's your books are about love, but they're also about like loving yourself and finding love when people don't love you and like because there's this thing going on, you can't love anybody else until you love yourself, and that's nonsense.
Right.
Because like loving yourself also doesn't mean unconditionally. Sometimes it means like you look yourself in the mirror like, you're not awful today. Just go on with your day. Like, you suck slightly less than you did yesterday. Well, I'll take it. You know, like it's not always radical. Like, wow, I'm the best. Affirmations in the mirror. Sometimes it's like you're not the worst.
Someone once told me, "Oh, it's easy. Just look at yourself in the mirror and say, 'You're really wonderful.'" I'm like, "That sounds so fake."
Right? Like I've tried that, and I look at myself in the mirror. I'll say things like that, and then I'll be like, but really. Either that or worse, back to the previous discussion, I'll start blushing because I gave myself a compliment and I don't receive them well. Everything about it goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
However, saying, "I can accept myself and love myself as I am right now,"
Mm-hmm.
that's acknowledging that you're not perfect. We're never going to be.
Yep.
We're going to leave this planet still not being perfect.
Yeah.
And that's
Much.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay because perfect people can't be related to.
I don't even think they exist.
No. Mr.
Like,
Rogers might have been.
he was pretty darn close. Like, he was, I will give you that, like,
Yeah,
really close. But, like, short of that kind of level of aspiration, and I'm sure he had moments where he cussed because he, kicked the bottom of something and hurt his
right,
toe. Like, everybody has moments like that.
right,
But, so, like, even he, I'm sure, was also grumpy with his wife on occasion when she didn't deserve it. I'm sure he was, because he was
right,
human.
right,
He might be the best version of human, but he's still human.
right. A counselor I had for a long time, one of his best friends worked with Mother Teresa for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And she was absolutely wonderful. You know, she was I my favorite story about her is when she went to give a talk in New York City and everybody else walked by this homeless person who was laying outside of the door of where she was going to be talking, and she didn't. She
Mm-hmm.
stopped and she made sure that he was taken care of, that he was taken to some place to be warm and fed, and
Mm-hmm.
she wouldn't go in until then. But apparently before she's had her coffee, she's a bitch.
Just proof. Just goes to prove that people are still people, regardless of anything else. People are people, and imperfect is fine. Like, and that's one of the lovely things about writing stories is because our characters, they are imperfect, or they should be. If they're not imperfect, you're probably a little bit, you know, you
Disney.
need. Even Disney characters aren't perfect because, like, I really want to shake Ariel upside down. Dad, but he loves me. Oh my God, you're 16. Shut up. You don't know anything.
Oh my god. I've never liked Romeo and Juliet.
I don't like Romeo and Juliet because I think they're both idiots, but also they were like 14, so what do I know?
And across the room, he's fallen madly in love with her, and it's a soulmate, and he must be with her. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you haven't even talked to her. How do you know it's a
It's like,
soulmate?
right, also, like, she could have a voice that sounds like the bottom of your shoe, and you might, like, never want to talk to her again. Like, don't make presumptions. Just because somebody's pretty doesn't mean you can tolerate them.
Yes.
I know, I'm pretty. I'm not toleratable. I'm the worst. Don't talk to me.
Yeah, but you know what? I hate it. The world favors the people who fit the category of
Mm-hmm.
pretty.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I have had friends who were outsiders simply because of their looks. And I
Yep.
think, don't tell me I'm beautiful. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it because I don't care
Mm-hmm.
about the looks. I care that this world is leaving those people outside,
Yeah.
something that has nothing to do with who they are.
Right, it's not a decision they made. Some people are just born how they're born, or they have a disability, or something has happened, and people, like, and beyond that, beauty's fleeting and it fades. Nobody's
Yeah,
gonna be. I do not look like I did when I was 20 and, like, a model, and I was super, like, man, was I pretty at 20. Now at 40, I'm still okay. I'm not gonna complain. But like there's so many people who go around their lives thinking, "Oh, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not pretty enough. Nobody's gonna like me." And I really wish the world would just shut up about that, and
Yep,
like not the color of their skin, but the content of their character, but applied to it, beauty standards
yep.
to bastardize MLK Jr. completely.
Hey, but he had some. He was an imperfect person, and he had the right idea about how people should be
Yeah,
accepted and allowed to be in this world.
agreed wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
Well, I think we can wrap it up with Martin Luther King because I don't think either of us is going to be able to top that. We'll just leave that for him.
probably so.
And thank you so much for joining me. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Please check out Kalene's book. It is on Amazon and a bunch of other places. I
Yeah,
will have links down below in the show notes. You'll be able to find her stuff. And also, just like, be Kalene's friend. She's wonderful. Like, I can't speak highly enough of her. So, thank you so
thanks.
much for joining me. And I look forward to having the chance to chat with you again.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, friends. Stay safe out there.
Yep.